Sally Ann Ranney is co-founder of the American Renewable Energy Institute and more recently a co-founder of Global Choices. Global Choices is a women-owned, women-led, I should say, non-profit that's operating in many countries, focused on particularly on this particular program to protect the inner Arctic Ocean. Welcome to Earth X.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It's good to have you and to talk about your important work. What needs to happen in the Arctic that Global Choices is so focused on?
Okay. Well, we're really focused on what is known as the heart of the Arctic, which is the Central Arctic Ocean. And it's very fragile. The sea ice is very fragile. It has world unique marine biodiversity, and it's threatened by a variety of looming industrial interests. It's a high seas, which means that it's outside the 200-mile zone of all the Arctic countries in the Arctic Circle. So it belongs to everybody and nobody, if you would.
Yeah.
So it's we're framing it in a global context as well as a local regional context. If you can imagine, and it's hard without without AV to show this, but the Arctic sea ice is actually our heat shield. The Earth's heat shield to the sun's heat and radiation. And it reflects all of that heat back into the universe, back into the atmosphere. What is happening is that sea ice is melting extremely fast, faster than they ever thought. The Arctic is 4 times warmer than any place on the planet. In some places, like Svalbard, which is a very northern North Atlantic island, 7 times. So you can imagine what is happening to this ice. And as it retreats, all that heat is absorbed by the dark ocean. That does 2 things. It raises the water temperature and it raises the air temperature. So think about the Greenland ice sheet, which is losing 30 million tons of ice per hour. That's how fast it's melting. That is being exacerbated by this situation because we're not reflecting the heat. So it's, if you can imagine the Arctic Circle, you have Russia, you have Finland, Sweden, Norway, Canada, the United States because of
Alaska?
Alaska, yes.
So that is where that ocean is, and what you describe is a trend, a phenomenon that of course has everything to do with the phenomenon of global warming.
Yes.
But therefore also it seems such a losing battle. Am I now far too pessimistic?
You're too pessimistic. But you are right. We have a sliver of time to change this direction. So think about if you have an omega point here and you have degrees going out this way. 1 degree here is like this. 1 degree out here is like that. So every nano degree that we can reduce global warming makes a huge, huge difference. So yes, emissions, of course, of fossil fuels, we know, the science is irrefutable, is the problem. What's interesting about the sea ice is that it's a measurable metric that you can actually correlate what the emissions should be to protect that ice at some point. We know there's going to be an overshoot and it's going to keep melting. But you've also got the biodiversity piece of it. And this is a global phenomenon. Do you know that the jet stream, which was, you know that it's very wobbly now, that is because, scientifically verified, that is because we've lost the sea ice. Ocean currents slowing down. You have all this cold fresh water coming in from the Arctic and warm water coming back up to the Arctic. This goes all the way to Antarctica. It has destabilized Antarctica. Everything, let's put it this way, we live in a systems world. Everything is connected to everything. Nothing happens in isolation. So we have 5 life support systems on this planet. Mm-hmm. They're all interrelated, and the one that we're talking about is the cryosphere, which is all the ice and snow on the planet. And we have the biosphere, which is flora and fauna, the geosphere, which is land-based, hydrosphere, which is freshwater and ocean water, and the atmosphere. They're all very tightly interlinked. So when one starts to fail, and the cryosphere is failing the fastest, and the Himalayas and the Central Arctic Ocean are the centerpieces of that. And they're what they call apex systems. It's like if you protect an apex system, you have protected a lot of other things. So the impacts of losing the sea ice, it's all, let me put it this way. Elephants are ice-dependent species.
Well, that makes it very easy. Yes, thank you. Still, we need to keep that global warming to the 1.5 degrees. That was the original goal, and now we say maybe it's 2 centigrade, and that will be okay. But what you're telling me is that a tiny difference in these numbers, 1.4 instead of 1.5, makes all the difference in the Arctic.
It makes all the difference in the world. But the Arctic specifically, because it's more sensitive, it responds more quickly to less or more CO2 or global warming.
But what do you need then to really achieve your goal?
We need several things. One is we are looking at countries. We have an endorsement document that nation states can endorse and support this moratorium. We're looking at something very similar to the International Fishing Treaty, which 17 countries signed for the Arctic Ocean, for the Central Arctic Ocean. But that treaty, which is really a landmark piece of work, it's fantastic. But it didn't go far enough to protect species from, these other aspects of acidification and climate change and all of that. So we're taking that one step further. Global leaders and global governments really need to look at, if they looked at the Arctic first and foremost and said, my God, these are affecting the fundamental operations of planet Earth. What can we do? What can we do? Well, we can start accelerating emission reductions quickly and use Arctic sea ice as a measurable metric as to how well that is working.
Because that is what you can do. And
yes.
That's why is that also why you chose that as the focus?
Well, we chose that, yes. We chose that as the focus also because it is, think about this. You know the soft spot on a baby's head? Mm-hmm. Okay. The soft spot on a baby's head is to the baby's long-term health as the Arctic Ocean is to the health of the world. You damage either one irreparably and you've got a bit of a catastrophe.
So the Arctic is in that sense more important than the Amazon rainforest or the glaciers in the Himalayas.
Well, they're all important, but where are some of these, there's less moisture in the Amazon. I mean, yes, they're cutting we know all of these other aspects, but it's drier because of that, but exacerbated very much by the fact that ocean currents have changed, the jet stream has changed, less moisture. And like I said, elephants, so losing the sea ice not only the jet stream and the ocean currents, because the composition of the water column has changed, and that's why it's slowing down. But they're also suspecting, this is not verified, suspecting it's fiddling with El Nino and La Nina. So the 5-year drought, the extended drought in Eastern Africa, that's why I say elephants are ice-dependent species.
Yeah.
You know, humans starving, no forage for livestock, no forage for giraffes and elephants. I have photographs that would make you cry, you know. And so you have to ask yourself, why isn't there more deep action? Where there's...
That would be a perfect question. So
yeah.
why?
Well, there's an Inuit elder in the furthest part of Greenland, and I've known him for some time. He told me a story that his mother, who's gone now, he's much older, said there is nothing, and they knew way back then, 45 years, 50 years ago, that the ice was melting. And she said, nothing needs to melt in the Arctic. Only the hearts of men have to melt. And then we can change our ways. So this is a much deeper question. It's not just about science. It's about humanity. It's really about how we, you know, why would we choose what we're choosing?
Global choices. But would the world be a different place if it were run by more women or by women only even?
Well, of course.
Yeah, well, why?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think one is that we are naturally collaborative
Yes.
because we've had to be in the family unit. I think because we bear children that we have an unspoken sort of DNA connection to life, and of course, nature is the creation. A child in your womb is the creation, and a lot of this is unspoken. It just is as it is. The UN did a study a few years ago that the more women in decision-making positions, better education, better environmental laws, less conflict. Yeah. And it comes from, I mean, you can't, if you're the matriarch in a family, you can't have everybody fighting with everybody, and, you know, you have to distribute resources fairly, etc. You hold the center of gravity in the family unit, and so that extends out into the world.
No, and of course, I fully agree. But it is so interesting, of course, that at the same time, it seems that male chauvinism is rising again. I mean, we seem to have been on a trajectory for some decades where women were rising and rising. And now, even I will say, despite Me Too, we seem to be on, or maybe it is because of Me Too, but there is a lot of male chauvinism again.
Right. So we're at an inflection point in human history. And an inflection point is where the new is trying to arise and the old is hanging on for dear life. Chauvinism and what you described is holding on to the old for dear life. So there's going to be a struggle. And in this struggle, you see all kinds of chaos. Gaza, Israel, more violence against women, in particularly in the Middle East now, and that's turned backwards. You have down here in the old, you have a different narrative. It's use. If we destroy it, no problem. You know, we'll fix it, etc. Men rule, patriarchy rules. In the new paradigm, it's based, and hate is easy. Hammurabi's law is easier, etc.
Deportation of immigrants.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And I would say a lot of fear.
Yes.
And fear locks the heart down.
It's not so good to go into the Greenland mother.
Exactly, exactly. When the new's trying to arise, it's based more on inclusivity, diversity, love, taking care of nature, taking care of each other. So this is where we are, and that's why there is such a struggle now. Now, who's going to win?
Yes. Who's going to win?
The new will win.
Has to win, of course.
The new will win.
But
It's part of the evolution of humanity. I mean, are we going to be the sixth extinction? We're certainly headed in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so interesting about it is that we know, most of us know that we're walking down the path to suicide.
yeah.
And we're letting it happen. And so there's something that's in the evolution of humanity and in the evolution of our consciousness that we can't quite get there to make the U-turn.
You rightly say that what we need to do is change minds, change consciousness. Mm-hmm. That's more important
Yes.
than emission laws
Yes.
and carbon credits.
Yes.
And I was not going to ask you, are you an optimist? Because I know you are. But why?
Why?
Why do you think the right side can win in between your fingers?
Well, because we've created the Mona Lisa and the nuclear bomb.
Yes.
Okay, so in Buddhism, there's an entity called...
Both by men, by the way.
Yes,
So,
both by men.
But
yes.
give me an example where you say this is the women, this is what we need.
Madame Curie.
Yes.
Okay. In Buddhism, there is an entity called Manjushri. And this entity has one hand like this, which is contemplative and receptive, and in the other hand, a sword. Mm-hmm. This is our dual nature.
Yes.
Yes. And there always is a challenge to keep that center so that those are balanced. We've gone out of balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are out of balance. We're holding the sword now. Collectively, I would say. I mean, there's so much good work going on in the world.
There is.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And, you know, will that rise to the point where it, in this trajectory, that it will take us into the new? Well, it's not going to be without a lot of struggle and a lot of suffering and all the rest of it. It's just the way it is. It's an evolutionary process. So we are nature. We are it. It's not out there. You know, when we say our relationship with nature, it's really about the relationship to ourselves and to each other. So consciousness is, we've been operating under false assumptions for a long time. Yeah. That there's not enough, hoarding, women are less than. I mean, there's a whole series of things. And when you say consciousness and change those mindsets, it's also changing the heart set. Mm-hmm. That is so important. And under those assumptions that there isn't enough, then there's hoarding, then there's competition, etc. When the assumption is there is enough, there's collaboration and other responses come forward. And so we have been held hostage for centuries. And this is a much longer conversation, but
Well, it sure is. And,
Yeah.
and there will be many moments that we
Right.
will have that conversation.
Yeah.
But let me ask you in closing, so you sort of see all the negative things very well, and you've studied it, and so you know that it's all true, and and that's overwhelming to a large extent. At the same time, you take the initiative through Global Choices to address a key issue, and you know you're working for that. Now, from in that experience, in the day to day, what is the best news that you have received? You've read, you've heard, the best news you've experienced in you know recently.
Well, I think there's a lot of good news. One of the best ones in the last year is when children won their court case that the government was not taking care of their future. And that case happened in Montana, which is a pretty buckled down, you know, red state.
Not exactly a women-led state.
No, no. And that was extraordinarily good news. All of the work that's going into protecting land base, you know, place-based mangroves, forests, a lot of work on forests that's going on, and so much science that's coming forward that is giving us the information and the technology to address some of things. I mean, is CCS going to, carbon capture and sequestration, is that actually going to be profitable? Is that actually going to work? We don't know yet. And we don't know when we put all that back into Mother Earth. You know, is she just going to go, yeah, forget that. You're not doing that to me. You know, so, and all, you know, I want to do a good news channel, TV channel, because there is so much out there and there are so many good people. But there's also, you know, we have to break through this ceiling of fear.
Yes.
That's one of our major challenges.
With this big battle, the battle of our lifetime, are we winning?
Are we winning?
Will we win?
Will we win? I think, I don't want to call it winning. I want to call it rebalancing, because it's not about, you know, there's the saying, what Christ said in the Bible, forgive them, they know not what they do. So the enemy is us, in a way. I mean, I consume. I drive a car. I have a plug-in hybrid. I have solar panels on my house. I do everything that I can, but I am still responsible in my personal life, in my community life, in my national life, in my international life. You know, we're addicted to this system, and addictions are really hard to get off of. Think of heroin, you know, or sugar. Sugar is a better one. They say sugar's harder to get off of than heroin, but that's where we are, you know, and that comes from not denial, not denying yourself something. It comes from choice. Choice is hugely powerful. That's one of the reasons we're called global choices, is because we have to make better global choices. And choice, we are at the moment of choice right now, collectively. We can go this way, or we can get stuck down here. But I think there's going to, the balance, I think we're going to come back into balance, you know? And going back to the Arctic is such a, I mean, it's a real-time symbol of just what we've been talking about, as well as the pushback on science, but also how science, this whole thing that we're doing we have proposed a 10-year moratorium on this Central Arctic Ocean, from deep seabed mining, oil and gas exploitation, a shipping lane for mostly LNG right across the North Pole, unregulated mass tourism, dumping of nuclear waste, testing of weapons, and unregulated geoengineering. What is this called? This is called the precautionary pause. Why run in, do what we do, and then we look back and go, oh my God, now we have to fix it. Look what we did. We always do that. This is saying, whoa, let's just wait a minute. We know so little about deep, deep oceans. Sylvia Earle, Dr. Sylvia Earle, who's on our advisory board, she has gone down in her ROV and they have found new species. Just 4 weeks ago, a group out of Australia found this amazing, beautiful, elegant, deep, 4,000 feet down squid. I mean, it's just, you couldn't make this up. I mean, it's just gorgeous.
Beautiful.
And also they have found that these nodules that we're after for deep seabed mining create oxygen. And so that's another little twist here. More oxygen is produced from the ocean in the northern latitudes than the southern latitudes. So, you know, this area that we're focused on belongs to everybody, under the law of the sea.
Let's keep it like that. Thank you, Sally Ann.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.